are competing in, we are repeating in, we are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.
Welcome to this interesting and hopefully also creative event concerning the Future Village. My name is Stella Nordahl and I'm a future villager or an inhabitant in this future village, I hope at least. And together with me to explore this fantastic idea, which I believe is something that is now in the making. First of all, welcome to Christopher Sigmund. Well, good to have you here.
Thank you, good to be here.
And it's not enough with the two of us. We also have Michael Cillian with us. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. First of all, village, the future village. What is the future village? Shall we start there to have some kind of a check-in, all of us, to set the frame for what is the future village, and so we know what we're talking about. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Sure. So who wants to go first? Shall I start?
Yeah, you should start.
Okay. Okay, so then for me, I would say the future village, first of all, the village. It's like an entity where I can belong, where I can both take part and be embraced. It's like a bigger version of the family for me. And I believe that the future village is actually happening right now. I've had this experience this weekend. I've been part of this Best for the World broadcast in some various concepts, and I've been meeting with at least 30 people or something this weekend, which were all interested in the direction of what is best for the world. And by doing so, I also felt something that is very close and very open, and I also found myself as being part of that community or village or whatever you call it. So that's my check-in.
Yeah, I'll say a few words then. I think there is something about this familiarity which is characteristic for the future village, as opposed to the future city. I mean, that is one of the points. It's a smaller entity, which means that we know the people in the village. Maybe we don't know everybody very well, but at least we are aware of each other, and we're also confident that people are aware of us. So it's easy to talk to anyone. I mean, there might be personal issues that conflicts might come up in a future village, but we still are aware of each other, and we know that we belong together in a group and want to help each other out, as opposed to the more anonymous version that can be in a neighborhood, in a city. And then the other word, future. So what is different in a future village compared to a traditional village? And that's something that would be interesting to explore more in this conversation now, but just right now to put something on there. So somehow it implies that it's not going backwards in time, but it's moving forwards and involving the opportunities which are here and coming.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
my take.
Thank you very much. What's your take on this? Now we have another person coming in also. Isn't it like Nick coming in? Okay, so...
Hello, guys. How are
Hi.
you all?
Hi. So interesting. Things are happening here in the stream while we're talking, and I really love this kind of welcome. We're just started out, Nick. You haven't missed out anything, I guess.
I missed out a little bit. But
A little bit, but it doesn't matter. We're always open for new inhabitants in the village, and we were just going to on a check-in here, and Michael was about to check in on what is the future village for you. So, Michael, should we go for that first?
I will go, and Nick will pick up after me then. So, so for me, like we had this fantastic exercise yesterday, a glass bead game where we played on what is the future village, and what came to me is that the future village is like so some said yesterday, is a place where you belong, and a village is also like we experienced a future village together here. I was at your house the whole weekend, Stella, but now I'm home for the last workshop, but I'm still in your village, and I was within your village when I was in your house. So we live in the same future village, but I don't have the same people in my village as your village. So they're overlapping, but they're also separate, and not separate, but they're different. So in the traditional village, the same 100 people lived together in that village. Each and every one of those, almost each and every one of those was in the same village for the whole life, probably. But a future village is something else. It's not a city, because you don't know, like Christoph said, you don't know everyone in a city. And you shouldn't know everyone. It's impossible. But at the same time, we need a small group of people that we can rely on outside family, friends, that is something larger. Of course, family and friends is part of my future village, but there's also a wider network of people that I know, that I can trust, that I can ask for help, and that I in turn, of course, can help. That's the important part. And these people are not the same as Stellan's people, even if I and Stella lived in the same village, if you get what I mean.
Thank you very much, and Nick, again, welcome to the future village. And I guess that you just understood what we're doing now. We're checking in on the future village in some sense. So, what is the future village for you, Nick?
Well, it says that it takes a village to raise a child, and in my world, regardless age, we all have the child within. The child we once were will stay with us, and from a philosophical point of view, we still have a child within, and that still needs a village around us for different reasons, socially, sustainability within it as well. So when I look at the future village, I very much think of, regardless where we are, we need a group of people around us, not only like a little close friendship there, but also different competences, skills, abilities to weave my daily life and the local setting I'm in. It could actually be also in modern times, future village, that this village could be somebody who's also online, may not be physically, regionally, or physically available. Though, what I would like to see is even if you live in a city, to see, could there be like sub-villages within a city? of people who have different skills, who support each other with their competence, and maybe the common value or payment system is not money. It might be some kind of exchange. So in the old days, if I help you, Stellan, with something, you help me with somebody else, or you know somebody who can help me with this. And also it has a perspective of locally organizing the things that we need, i.e. if that is for food or for shelter, but we try to complete and support each other locally, but still doing that, keeping in mind that we're part of a global village as well. So how I spend my needs are done in respect of the next village next door, and that next village next door may be on the other side of the earth. So it's that kind of global feeling to my future village. And in my village, then I also would know, because in the block of flats where I live, or if I live in a neighborhood, like unlike in the old days in the village, I do not know the people around me. I don't know what they work with, or their names, or their passions, what they're good at, maybe their shortcomings. That you would know in the village as such.
I think that's an interesting point to lead onwards after this initial check-in. Like, how is the interface between the village and the city then? I mean, if the city is still there, what is really the interface between us? And is there still a need for the city? And if so, how much need do we have for that? Because if we look at the individual level, the family, the village. Okay, so that point with the village, okay, so that is something we can relate to. We feel that we belong. So in the city we might not belong. So how is there going to be an interaction with the city? How is the interaction going to be, or with other villages?
Yeah.
Any ideas about that?
Well, I'm trying to just figure out when you talk about like interaction. I mean, if we look at the development as it is per now, we are becoming more and more urban. We've done that for quite a long time. The last and the way it looks like we still continue to urbanize ourselves. But how then do we interact within these urban settings? And you can quite easily be what's the word I'm looking for, isolated. Despite the fact that you live among many people, you can feel much more alone than if you were living in a village or in the countryside, because people would see you, recognize you. So how do you build a neighborhood feeling or an interaction between people, and how do you create those spaces and that are smaller than what we have today in our current Swedish setting, at least when we look at municipalities? I mean, you would have like between 40,000-50,000 in a city, which we kind of feel, oh, this is like a village, or is it not? A commune. But within that, how do you create that neighborhood and feeling of belonging and interacting and interfaith within each other? Is that doable? Can we do that with IT components, or connect on a digital sphere, and how do we then make that physical? The local square is not there any longer. I mean, there are some, but can we recreate that? Or where do we meet?
Where do you meet, Michael?
Yeah, I'm all over the place, and like COVID had really changed it. I was full on digital well before COVID, but many people now, when they couldn't even go to work, lost that part of the workplace was part of your village. You didn't know everyone at work unless you worked at a really small company, but the workplace was part of the village, and that disappeared. And then we got this Zoom or video calling, Teams, Google Meet, whatever, Discord servers, of course, has also bloomed up as a way to extend your village. So I think we will come back. We need a physical meeting. We need to meet people, but we are now accustomed to this type of village. I'm here in my village with the four of you, and I don't know you, Nick, but I can see maybe someday I will welcome you into my village if I get to know you, and then you become part of my digital village in this essence. But I will also go out and meet. I have a local board game group here in Halmstad. I will go out and meet them, and I don't know all of them, but some of them are close friends, and they're part of my local village here as well. But you don't know them, as I said before. So they're not part of your village, even though we are in the same village. But so that we will want the local meeting places, and co-working was a trend before this, and we will want that as more as possible. Even now that maybe big companies are seeing that they don't need humongous offices in the city because people are not there all the time, and they will rearrange to people to sit in a co-working place, and then they will meet people that are not working in the company. Also been a problem before that. Even if your work life for many people consisted of only meeting people in your work, unless you worked in a business or somewhere where you actually network a lot in your. We are all networking people, so we tend to see every workplace with that glasses and bubble, but most people are not networking in their work like we do. So that's also a thing that comes together. And another thing that came to me now, we said, like the traditional village had their roles, like the village elder, the village idiot, the village butcher, and everything. That every village had a role that were globally in wherever you went in the world. There was some type of roles that were in every village. And what are the roles that are missing in our villages?
What kind of roles do we see needed in society? Maybe already today, but definitely in a very short time. You Michael, you and your colleague Batti Ola Bergstrand, you have been weavers for many years, connecting different hubs and so on. I believe that if we're going to have a future village as some kind of a design criteria for how we engage in a community, then I believe that couldn't be like a we defined by a them, and then we need some kind of a interaction with other hubs or villages. That could be something, a role that could be of interest for this village. The context is at the same local and global, and I can see analog idea here. If you go for the previous paradigm had like specialists, but now I see a need for specialists with a holistic view. So this is maybe either we call it a weaver and we put that capability in one person, or maybe it has to be something that all of us are capable to do. I don't know, to be able to connect with others. But at the same time, it's quite a tough capability to develop. It takes a lot of engagement in weaving around the world or around the globe or whatever we call it. I don't know if you see what I'm looking for here.
I mean, it sounds to me like a sort of an upgraded version of diplomacy, like diplomacy as of all. The people who were in going to different countries and having these connections, and now everybody is sort of expected to do everything more or less. And that's one thing that I see. Like we talk about the future village, including these positive values, belonging, weaving, etc., etc. But if it's going to be something that works for us, I think it cannot be that we add even more tasks on everyone who's already fully busy. So how can we cut away with the machete to take away all those things that we don't need? How can we remove the isolation, and how can we remove all the distractions which the city brings, so that we can get to the core of the kind of life that we want to have. So what can we remove from the present situation to be able to incorporate this new way of being together?
That's interesting. I don't know if we have any answers right now. I don't know what to say, the rest of you.
It's a hard one. I mean, that is a hard one. I'm just sort of I get this picture in my mind, sort of thinking, first of all, a village is something that I can come home to. If I'm out traveling, I come home to my village and I feel at home. But when I then think about the future village, and I sort of get this picture of a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle, and I'm one of the pieces in this big puzzle. But there are many sort of connections there to my piece of the puzzle. So I'm thinking, okay, am I in modern times part of several villages, or is it only one? Because there are different realms. So Michael, when you talk about your village, and there's I find that I have like several different villages regarding on my contact, what my interest, passions, and maybe when I also travel or with the things I do. And all of them, when we talk about functions, have hosts. Yesterday or on Friday, I visited another village in Stockholm, which was super interesting. And the thing that held the thing together was the host and the hostess. And that's definitely a role in future villages. And I'm just asking, am I part of one? Can I have one village in the future village? Or am I part of several? And which village do I then come home to? And so the question there, what can I cut away? Well, of course, I want to cut away to not be too distracted, because I can't have too many villages because I've been just torn apart. So how do I then focus in and say, okay, now this is my core village, and then I have my like sub villages, and from that I navigate.
Okay, so I see what you're looking for here, and this is what I mean with this capability of Weaver. Maybe we are, the four of us are not representative for the future village specific inhabitant. Maybe we are some kind of a Weaver, which means that what you're talking about here could be a specific role or a specific capability that not all people in that village need to have. Or we are some prototypes for an inhabitant of a future village, the four of us. I don't believe that, actually. I know all the three of you, and hopefully myself a little bit, and I would say that you are people that engage in many contexts. You are interested in various subjects, not just one. You are people more or less. You get energy by creating things and so on. Is that really necessary for all inhabitants in this future village? I don't think so, actually.
No.
So maybe we're special cases for the setup. Do you see what I mean here?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, very often something we do wrong is that we take our own beliefs and believe that this is good for everyone, or the solutions that fit me fits to everybody else, and that would be wonderful, of course, but or not. But that's not the case. So what helps me doesn't necessarily help you, Christopher, or you, Michael, or you, Nick, or any other person. So what I'm saying here is that when we relate as four persons or four inhabitants of the future village, when we relate to the future village and the roles, we can't use ourselves as a role model here. We have to take it outside ourselves for a while.
Yeah, and also that we might not even know what is best for us. I mean, we have a general idea, but there has to be room for being surprised. It's very difficult to surprise yourself, and it's easier to surprise.
Mr. Bean does it all the time.
Yeah, well, does he? Well, is he representative then?
No, probably not.
I mean, we could surprise ourselves to a certain extent, of course, and I mean, improvisation is sort of about that, allowing the things to happen. But it takes on another level if we open up for. Like, for example, this village meeting started, and then after a few minutes, another villager came in. So that shifted the atmosphere of the meeting. And
yeah, and it shifted everything in the technical aspect also, because I needed to find another camera to be able to get Nick on the screen, and so it was like, yeah, there were things happening both in the atmosphere and in the hard, so to speak, physical feeling of something. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do, and I think that is important to include, because also what you are talking about, both Michael and Nick, like how the future village, are we part of several villages, or is it our village that we carry around all the time? Well, if we are part of several, in either case, they have to be temporal also. It can start, it can end. We can leave one village, we can come to another one. I mean, I used to think in my previous work life, I was telling people that, well, here we are actually part of 3 different levels. There are the people in the same office, then the people in the organization is the same group, which might be in different cities, and then the people that we work in projects on, which are all around the country or even all around the world. So this level of understanding several types of connections, I think that is a necessary part of it. But how can that relate to this village idea of belonging? And is it only I who know, okay, now I'm in this village, now I leave that village? And is it clear or is it unclear? Do the other people know if I am in the village?
Yeah, that's a good question. So at some point we need to have some kind of role creation phase before entering this future village, maybe. So even if we believe that we're in it now, we should have some kind of a session focusing on roles, maybe, to be able to have a first prototype on the roles also, or the capabilities for the roles, or something like that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. Like, because I've been playing a lot with identity and role, and we've done this during this weekend as well. We did our session last night when we played with roles as well, and that's the thing. Like you and Nick, we said, unless someone said that we need a host. What you, Nick, right? Yeah. And host is someone that takes care of someone at a place, and the host takes care of people inside the village. But the weaver is also a kind of person, but the weaver constantly goes outside the village to visit other villages as well. So that's another type of service as the village, as a global host or a local host in that village. So different kinds. And we talk also about the navigator as a type of explorer. They're overlapping, but not necessarily the same. The weaver is someone that actually talks to a lot of people and see what they're doing. But the navigator is someone that can explore a lot of villages, but must not necessarily talk to all the people in these villages. But doing like, it can be the same person, but it can also be a different person. So I'm more of a navigator than Bartola, and Bartola is more of a weaver than me. But we are both navigators and weavers.
Okay.
And we are also, in some cases, hosts. When people come to my home here in Halmstad, I will host them here. And Stellan is a host. He hosted me in his home.
Okay,
so that's an overlapping role we also play. But we should have a conversation about these roles.
Yeah, definitely.
What do they include and what doesn't they include? And how do they overlap? And how can we play? Play is the important part. How can we play, prototype, experiment with these roles, so that we can understand them better?
But all of those that we have mentioned now are people roles, more or less, people. So what is your take on people technology? I mean, for me, a future village should have some kind of a wisdom related to technology. And when I talk about technology, I'm not talking about gadgets. I'm more talking about level of technology, or what it's for, the purpose of it, and how we can embrace that into the structures. For instance, a very good thing in a city, for instance, if you have a lot of cars, is that you have traffic lights. So that's, for me, a very good technology that is part of the infrastructure, because that makes the city go round in some way. it helps and facilitates the flow of the streets and the people and the flow of it. But to be able to take such a technology and apply it to the future village, you need to have some kind of ability for doing that, because all technology is not good for us. And to decide upon that as a single person is quite hard. So in a municipality, for instance, you have a strategical planning department or something like that. So that's how we have solved it in the municipalities today. But how will we solve this in the future village? Anyone got any ideas? Is that of interest? Because when we talk about the future village, it's not only the community itself, it's also the structure and the infrastructure.
Yeah, I have an idea. I can go first, but I'm sure that Michael and Nick might want to add something. But I'm thinking of this traditional, the circle of elders, which is one entity, but also like the Viking village tradition where every family was represented in the council, and it was like to aim at consensus, to talk in a circle, to discuss ideas and to arrive at what is best for the village. So in the city there is the representative version, because there's just too many people for everyone to come together, or so they say. But in the village, potentially people can be represented so that the people who are actually affected have a say.
I at some level I agree upon what you say, but the problem as I see it is that then we never will go beyond consensus, and consensus for me is a very low level of consciousness actually. It's like the medium, or maybe the majority of the some kind of a median consciousness level or something. If I have trust in you, Christopher, for instance, in the choice of let's say technology for as an example, the infrastructure, why shouldn't you be the one that makes those decisions then? Do I have to have a representation for all of those questions? And for what questions do I need to be engaged? There's also something interesting in both of those. Representative, yes, but at the same time, it takes a lot of energy to put yourself into the mindset of choosing. I mean, I need to have some kind of a framework for my choices. I need to have knowledge about them, maybe an ethical framework and so on. So I see here there's like could we go beyond consensus? That's my question, more or less. I think it's very interesting if we could do that.
I don't think I agree exactly here, because I think that consensus doesn't require that everyone has an opinion about everything. I think trust plays into it. I think trust is an important part of this, because let's say that you are the specialist in a certain area and you bring it to the table and say, okay, so this is the question, this is my idea how to solve it. And then most people might just say, well, it sounds great. But then someone will have this idea, maybe a child or an old person say, well, what about, blah, blah, blah. It's like, wow, yeah, I didn't think about that. Maybe it is something which comes into play here.
Yeah, but then I think we need new principles for this, because consensus as of today is everyone agrees upon. And that is very often the what do you call it, the denominator that has the, what do you call it? In Swedish we call it minsta gemensamma nämnare. I don't know the English
lowest
word.
common denominator.
Yeah, and how can we make it to the största gemensamma nämnare, the biggest one, or the embracing a larger wisdom,
while still maintaining the integrity of the people.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Thanks. So for me, it's not just using the words of what has been. For instance, even if I believe in representative democracy as a fundamental principle, there must be, for me, in the future village, a way to go beyond consensus. And today, as I see it, we don't have that kind of principles or structures.
But consensus is quite rare. I mean, in representative democracy, it's majority oppression over minority in essence most of the time.
yes.
Every now and then there is some sort of consensus, but mostly it's like, okay, we are 51%, we will decide.
But within the entities that are the representative entities, the parties or whatever it is, very often they use some kind of again, representative democracy is lower than consensus, yes, but consensus is still low. So how can we increase the level of consciousness in the decision making? That's what I'm looking for.
So what my take on it is was what you touched upon before, like the village elder that we're lacking in today's society. No one spent their life looking just for wisdom to lead us, and we can see that in our leaders. We all scratch our heads sometimes when they make decisions in fields they have no competence, no expertise, but also they have no wisdom how this is connected to everything else. Like we talked about Nora Bates and her warm data, thinking that we have so much isolation when we see every problem, we isolate it and we do data and science on it, but there's no contextual science and contextual data on everything. And we need people that we can trust, that we can call our village elders, that have spent their time looking for perspectives on a problem, so they're not just seeing it in isolation. And these people we will call wise, and because we know they try their hardest to see things and problems and solutions from many different angles, and to please many people, though, of course, but not everyone. But the size, like you said, Stellan, that's not the lowest, but the biggest common denominator. What is the best decision to make here, and how do we trust to make these decisions? We certainly don't trust our leaders. Even we trust leaders a lot here in Sweden. In many parts of the world, leaders are corrupt and didn't get there by competence or expertise or anything else. They bought their way or they bullied their way to power. So there's a low level of trust in any institution and authority worldwide, and that's a huge problem. And when you speak to people here,
I can fill in here because it's also an interesting phenomena when we put someone in charge of something. It could be by a voting principle or something like that, like in the democracy setup. But it could also be we just appoint a boss or whatever it is in an organization. So at some point we must believe, at least then, that this person is capable under all circumstances to take the best decisions.
Well, that would be the idea.
Yeah, that's a quite a stupid idea. I mean, okay, even if you have a lot of trust in me, you shouldn't trust me on this one. Don't put me in charge of everything. You understand what I mean here? We have like a president or a chairman or a CEO, or why don't we have a group of people, or we can call it a government, but in the principle is still that there is like one that having a bigger or a more relevant saying than the rest. Even if you have a democracy rule, like in different societies, we have this when you vote in the board, and then you end up 50-50, and then it says very often the chairman has the final vote. So again, for me, this is.
I think I can fill in here because I mean this is sort of coming from the existing paradigm. This is like how things are done. Looking at from a let's say future perspective, I can envision a situation where people are listening to the one who is inspired. So it's not so much about me; it's more about the idea. So where is the idea coming right now? So who is inspired, and that people can be tuned into understanding that inspiration has a certain, let's say, vibration, for lack of a better word. And like in music, when we improvise together, it's a lot about being perceptive. Okay, who knows where we're going right now? You know, and to have this real deep trust that, okay, we're all here to make the best decision. So let's see where the ideas come from right now.
I love that. Okay, shall we leave this part of the dialogue for a while, because I believe there is one more, maybe many more topics we haven't touched upon, but something that you mentioned, some of you, I don't know who it was in the beginning of this conversation, was the artifacts. because very soon when we set the rules, we also need, for me at least, it's like it needs to get very physical so I can be able to embody this future village. Maybe we can find artifacts already when prototyping it, not only after a while. We have to have some kind of a starting point. Do you see what I'm looking for?
What do you mean with an artifact in this context?
Okay, so what I'm looking for is twofold actually. One is the artifacts in the future village to embody the future village. And the other one is maybe a more symbolic one, which I believe could also be embodying. How can we find, I don't know what to talk, I mean, you mentioned the other night in another conversation a talking stick, for instance. That's an artifact which is relevant for that kind of workshop you were hosting when you used it, or was it in your family? I don't remember. You mentioned it in a workshop we had here in the Best for the World broadcast, Christopher. It could be, when looking at you, Michael, you have artifacts. Some of them are on you. You got the capability cape. You got the glasses with some kind of the capability cape to be able to take decisions in the direction of what is best for the world, instead of the victim hoodie, which we all very often carry around. And you also have some kind of glasses. I don't know exactly what they're for, but I believe that you get another vision with them. And they look cool. So that's what I'm talking about here. Are the artifacts that we can build upon when we're prototyping the future village.
So I can first give the wider definition of an artifact that I used in my 4-hour session last night was like any grouping of materia in the universe is an artifact. The sun is an artifact. The planet is an artifact. My glass is an artifact. A small grain of sand is an artifact. So that's the wider definition. But in human context, we group artifacts depending how we see them, especially how useful they are to us. So like any kind of tool, clothing, a table, your house is an artifact. The lamps behind you is an artifact. And they're objects, but the artifact definition is that we have a like a narrative and a usefulness relationship to these objects. So they have a relationship with us in that essence. And we have in the traditional village, we had hundreds of artifacts. We had the houses, we had all the plows, we had the carpenter had his special artifacts, the priest had his artifacts, the Bible, and the church is an artifact. And we have all these tools, and we talked about the technology is someone that in some way handle tools that is external to the human body in any sense. And lately tech has been associated with everything digital, but the tech and engineering is like the relationship with all types of tools and artifacts that the village uses on a daily or yearly basis for any type of daily work or special ceremonies. Like for Christmas, we take from the Christmas tree. It's an artifact that we have a Christmas relationship. And there's somewhere down the line, there's a tool maker who make the things that we put in the Christmas tree and everything else. And that is very extremely complex relationships around artifacts, but we all have a relationship with, and especially the one that are close to us that we wear. And this
identity creators.
Cape has a narration that I have a relationship. I wear this and I have a narration relationship with that. And this is my navigator glasses. I call myself Fusion Navigator. So I wear the navigator glasses to remind myself that I am a navigator. So I have a narrative relationship with this artifact. That's what my philosophy.
An identity creator, more or less. And so, yeah.
You want to say something, Nick?
Yeah, I was thinking, and I need to just to expand a little bit here, but when we look into the future village, a village is a self-sustained unity of people that can kind of cater for the needs within a group of people. And so when we looked into the future village, we would need to identify what are those needs to maintain a sustainable setting in our times. I think in an earlier conversation, you still mentioned the project in Landvetter, or where a group of people or the community said, hey, we're going to build a new village. We're not just going to keep developing the ones we've had, but what if we were to start from zero and let's involve as many different people in the thinking thereof? So we get all the different perspectives, getting the children in there, getting the different people, different work groups, the elders, and when you got a bigger image, because the four of us, we only have our sort of our perspective, and we're quite we're a little bit isolated on the gender issue as well. We're only like there's only men here, so you need to get in all the groups of people, and when you have reassessed that, then you can see what can you appoint, what are the needs of people in that to fulfill that, and some of the needs maybe does not have to have a common decision making because of the quality of their needs. What they do need, regardless what role you have, I'd like then, and this is where I come into then to the artifacts, that there's some kind of gadgets, or like if you say glasses with certain lenses, that will remind myself that the decisions or the thinking I have is not let alone for myself, but for the village in which I'm in. So how do I get best for the world glasses, lenses, rather than best in the world, or my selfish motives versus the collective motives, and what can because sometimes we lose connection to that, and so how do I remind myself within the setting? So these are some of the artifacts I'd like to see more of, like in education. I think all should have a glasses and a coat like this in any school.
In any school. Capability capes for everyone, yeah. I believe that if you open your wardrobe, there are capability capes for everyone. Okay, so I actually found an artifact here. I will see if I can show it to you. It's like a walnut. It's inside this walnut is the potential for a whole walnut tree. That's very beautiful, and that means that any seed holds the potential of that species. And this specific walnut, it comes from the last trip to Almedalen, which is in this context, I would say an inspiration for prototyping the future village. Almedalsveckan is like a Swedish democracy festival that has been taking place for 50 years. And some of us have met there in different contexts, and now we're co-creating this prototype for a future village together. And this one we found last autumn when we were talking about future meeting places for future dialogues. So for me, this little walnut represents already now the future village in some sense. And if I should open it, I don't believe I should. I maybe should plant it. I don't know exactly how to do to make it grow. So I have to carry it very to be cautious about it. But if I would have opened it, all know the how it looks like. It looks like a little brain in here, and so we should be rational, I believe, but also connected to the to the broader or perspective or perception and what Mother Earth has to bring. So this village must be very close to all our artifacts must have a relation to the wholeness, I believe, in the future village.
I think that is one of the challenges actually to see, like, okay, so is this something which is for me? Is this something which is best for me, best for the village? best for the world. And there might be even more levels between that. If we still have cities, well, then what is best for the city, which is maybe a greater entity, or is the village outside of it? So I think one of the aspects here, and as we have touched on before as well, is to be able to navigate on different levels and different contexts and different settings. That is really key here. And coming back to the question you raised earlier, do everyone need to have that? I think it's about I don't think it's a either or question. It's more of a development. Like every person has the potential to develop intellectually, to develop emotionally, develop physically, and also develop in relations, and develop socially, and in seeing the big picture. So we all have this potential to grow. But then, as we are different in both our talents and how far we've traveled in a certain path, then we will complement each other.
Yeah. That was actually a very beautiful summing up, more or less, because we're actually heading for a next broadcast here in the studio, which is the final broadcast here in like 5 minutes or something. So maybe we should round this up and have a checkout, more or less, from this dialogue and conversation we have had here. And for you who are following this and you want to engage in the Future Village, please contact any of us. Right now we are broadcasting in the Best for the World broadcast, and we have a description there in the concept called the Future Village. So maybe we should go for that page for now and put up some contacts there, and we can also share that link in the comments of this video. And well, who goes for the checkout question here? Michael, did you have a checkout question?
Yeah. So
the check. No, it was a checking question you should have. No,
yeah,
sorry.
checking question. Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's a checkout question. So yeah.
So now it's a checkout question. So how do we use cones in our Future Village?
Yeah, that was the checking question. So sorry, this is another. We had a fantastic dialogue the other night about workshop formats. Never mind. Okay, so we need a checkout question here. Who can put it on the table?
I can follow. I mean, if we can have one each. I'd like to have the question there, and it's two-folded. It's on the one hand, how can we bring existential sustainability into the thinking of a future city? And when we talk about elders, regardless age, how can we connect another thinking from other old settings called the seventh generation, taking decisions that can last longer than one, ideally, even if it's really important, up to 7 generations ahead in time.
Wow. So now we're formulating checkout questions, and we don't check out, we just formulate the questions. I love this. Okay, so then I can formulate a checkout question also then. And that would be, how can we engage in other future villages? Because again, it's very often that we put them in singular. And we believe that we have one solution, which is the only one. Could there be many versions of future villages, not only one version? So that's how I will formulate the checkout question.
Okay, so formulating a checkout question, how can the village support the individual so that the individual feels that sense of belonging, which is crucial for there to be a village?
Wow. Okay, I think we need to round it up here and say thanks for today. And then the next people are knocking at the door, and maybe some of you will be in that broadcast too. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking part in this dialogue. And if you want to come in contact with us, go to Best for the World broadcast. It's www.bestforthe.world, and then you find the concept called the Future Village. and we will put up some contacts there. And take care, everyone, and hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
Take care. Bye.
I'm very excited to play Village with you.
Okay, so where is the checkout song? There are too many things here in my little iPad. Here we go.
We are creating the world we're now living in. We are competing in. We are repeating in. We are believing in. It's time for us to shift our mind from best in the world to best for the world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. It creates a new world to mind a shift, intentionality, perceptuality, conceptuality. We are choosing to shift our mind to best for the world, best for our world. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional. Make decisions intentional, to take decisions intentional, making decisions intentional.